What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to bring you another discussion video to talk about another 2014 WCQ hat format tech card, and the card in front of you is the card that I'll be discussing in this video, and that is Different Dimension Ground. This is a card that had been on my radar for quite a while, and I always really liked this card, and a lot of people started messaging me and commenting and asking me to actually talk about this card, so I kind of pushed it forward and decided it's finally time to talk about this card, as I think it is really, really cool. Now, obviously, if you've never seen this card before, it just has one simple line of text, and that is, this turn, any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So, in my opinion, this card kind of is like a macrocosmos mixed with dimensional fissure, or vice versa. It's more like dimensional fissure because dimensional fissure banishes any monster sent to graveyard, similar to this, but it's sort of like macro in the sense that it is a trap card. Now, that being said, I think this card is mainly a good sideboard card. You'd probably rather side it than main it, though there are a handful of decks that could technically main this card, and I'll probably talk a little bit about that as this video goes on. But the cool, neat thing about DDG right here is the fact that it's a chainable trap card. It's not like Macrocosmos where you keep it on the field, and it's also not like Dimensional Fissure where it has to be activated right away and your opponent knows about it. The fact that it's a normal trap card means you can kind of flip this whenever you want, and it just becomes kind of a boom, you're under Dimensional Fissure. And that in itself is very, very cool. And so the reason that this card is a pretty solid card in my opinion is because there are so many good graveyard effects in hat format, whether that be, say you start your opponent's turn, your opponent starts their turn, and you flip this right away. Now what you've done is you've shut down their graveyard for the turn, which a lot of decks can be hit by that. I should say it shuts down the monsters for their graveyard specifically. So decks like Lightsworn Ruler that really need their graveyard, or any of the Mythic Ruler type decks, so Mythic Rulers or Hieratic Rulers or anything like that where they need their resources in graveyard, that is going to hurt them very, very much. And also decks like Infernity that need their graveyard, whether that be for their Stygian Street Patrols or just their combo pieces, their Archfiends, Necromancers, etc. go to graveyard, and usually they're reviving them throughout their turn. This card is perfect ways to stop that, as well as decks playing hands, or specifically if you're playing this in a deck that loses to hands. For example, Evil Swarm is a good example of a deck that really struggles against the hands. This is going to make so if they try to crash them, say they go summon a Fire Hand and go to battle phase to try to crash it into something on attack declaration, you could activate this, and then their monster, the attack will continue, their monster will be destroyed and it will get banished, and the hands specifically have to be destroyed and sent to graveyard to actually go and resolve. So this is just a really good out to cards like that. But even some of the smaller interactions with things like hand traps, this will stop certain hand traps. For example, Max C has to be discarded and sent to graveyard, and I believe same with Veiler. So if you preemptively activate this, sure, your opponent could chain those types of cards to this. For example, you go and activate this at the start of their turn, they might just go and chain their Max C, but at the same time they're chaining it on their own turn at that point, and it just becomes an awkward situation. In a lot of cases, some decks need their monsters in graveyard, but for one turn, simply just shutting down the opponent is strong enough, so this is a great way to just kind of play that. Going back to the hands in another case, this is a chainable, so even if your opponent, say you have this set and your opponent summons an Ice Hand and thinks they're going to crash and pop your back row, you can just at start of battle phase just activate this, and then if you don't have any other back row, they're probably not going to crash their Ice Hand for no reason, and so that way you basically just reverted their battle phase to their main phase 2, and it kind of just skipped that. So that is another great use of this card. There are tons and tons of things with this. Again, I think it's probably a better sideboard card when you know you're going first, simply because it's a trap card and you don't really want to be siding these in for when you're going second. Another thing to note is, I'm not entirely sure, but if it's anything like the Dimensional Fissure rulings during H.A.T format, there was a time in which it was ruled that if artifacts are set and they're in your spell and trap card zone and they go to graveyard, they're destroyed as spell cards. So this would not get the artifacts banished. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because again, there were certain times in which it was ruled that way and certain times in which it wasn't. So that might not be as accurate depending on if you're going based on, NA, EU, or OCG type rulings for H.A.T format. That's definitely something you need to keep in mind though. If, your group of friends or whatever tournament you're playing in is going by one of the places that did rule that, that can be a downside for this card. But at the same time, that could even be a benefit if you're playing artifacts. That way you can actually still get your artifact type effects off under this. So that's a really neat thing too. There's just, again, so many different uses for this, and it's super, super versatile. So that's why I figured it was a good time to actually go and talk about that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you guys like this card? Do you prefer it in the main deck, the side deck, or in what ways would you prefer a card like this, or would you rather just play the macro and defissure that are at 1? This card being at multiple copies is really nice too, so if you really wanted to, you could play all 5 of them, or, whatever you really want. But let me know in the comments section, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, comment any questions or videos you'd like to see in the future, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. You never miss a new video. Share this video with your friends. Maybe this is a card that they can take advantage of in their deck. And anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.